Today, I'd like to share the story of my personal encounter with Jesus Christ in the Eucharist. So, to tell you the story, I'm going to have to take you back about 12 years, but before getting there, I kind of want to set up the story. As far as to where I was spiritually, at this point, I had received the sacraments of baptism, First Communion, and confirmation. I grew up Catholic, I'm a cradle Catholic, and I grew up going to Mass every single Sunday with my entire family without missing a Sunday. So that's kind of what I knew as far as my faith. Now, what was lacking was a personal relationship with God. And on top of that, I didn't realize that Jesus was truly present in the Eucharist that I received every Sunday. But things changed. Now we can go back. So, 12 years ago, I was at a parish mission, and it was towards the end of the mission. I believe it was a 3-day mission, and I was there with my family. I remember that the mission had come to a close, and as a community, we were going to have time for adoration. And I remember the whole mission that night. I was sitting in front of a very tall man, and I kind of, had to keep moving my head around, couldn't really see. And when the mission part of the night came to a close, my brother kind of looked over and was like, hey, maybe we should go sit somewhere else, because he figured I couldn't really see from where I was sitting. So we went ahead, and just the two of us, we walked up to a pew closer to the front where there was no tall person in front of me. So it was just him and I. We walked up there, and we were having adoration, and after a few minutes, our pastor took hold of the monstrance, and he started making his way down the pews. Now, I had never seen that before, and I noticed, as did my brother, that people were kind of moving towards the ends of the pews so that they'd be able to lay their hands on the monstrance. And my brother and I kind of looked at each other and were like, okay, this is different. And then we started noticing, why are these people crying? Several people were crying. We were confused. And we kind of looked at each other and were kind of chuckling a little bit. We thought it was kind of like just weird. We're like, didn't understand why that was happening. So, again, just to remind you, I didn't know that Jesus was present in that little wafer that was making its way down the aisle. So, as our pastor's making his way towards our end, my brother looks at me and he says, do we touch it? And I looked at him and just said, I think we have to, everyone else is. So our pastor makes his way to where we are, and we move on over and we lay our hands on the monstrance as everyone else did. And in that moment, I felt a feeling I had never felt before. I can't describe it. It's a feeling that I hadn't experienced, and that I haven't experienced since, actually. Truly just indescribable. But I do remember that feeling just coming over my entire body. And the one very vivid memory that I have is not wanting to take my hand off the monstrance. I just wanted that moment to last a little bit longer. So I knew I had to let go. And when I did, we went back to where we were sitting on that bench, and we were all kneeling at the time. So we went back to kneeling, and I remember placing my head down, and I was just so overwhelmed with emotion, and tears just started running down my face. And I remember thinking, we were just laughing kind of at these people for crying, and here I am crying. So in that moment, the first thing I did was put my head down and make sure that my hair, which was about this long back then, that it covered my face. So just put my head down, and I was just kind of trying to process everything. And in that second when I did that, I think my brother knew something's up. So next thing I know, he just lifts up my hair and says, "Are you crying?" And I remember just kind of smacking the hair out of his hands and kind of just going back to this state of awe and almost confusion. What happened? Why? I didn't know. In fact, I wasn't able to make sense of what had happened until a few years later when I started diving deeper into my faith. And then it all clicked. And I realized that that night I had encountered Jesus himself in the Eucharist.